questions. Again, the theme of this presentation is careers and how to advance in your career. So it's a very timely topic, and I know you'll be interested in the perspectives of our panelists. And then we'll open it up for questions, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of good questions. So it gives me great pleasure. I'm Joya Bales. I should introduce myself first. I think I know many of you, or maybe most of you in the audience. I have the pleasure of serving as the Senior Associate Dean of the Czar School of Business. Also here is our Dean, Herman Perliner. And of course, my partner in crime, Patricia Chivarello, who is responsible for this great event. First, I'd like to introduce Paige Chavone. Paige is Data Center Lead at Jones Lang LaSalle. She is a certified project management professional and has over 12 years of experience in corporate real estate strategy, product execution, and cross-functional team leadership. For the past decade, Paige has been responsible for strategic management within Bank of America and Capital One Bank, focusing on reaching mission-critical operational objectives. Next, we have Stan Bernard. Stan is Senior Information Technology Professional with over 19 years of experience as a subject matter expert in IT leadership and global account management. Currently, he leads the Northeast Region team at Jones Lang LaSalle, and he is also a proud graduate of Hofstra University. And last but not least, we have Jeff Szczapa. Jeff is Senior Vice President at Jones Lang LaSalle, and he has previously held positions as Vice President and International Transaction Manager for BNY Mellon, and has worked on various investment and development projects on Long Island. So I would like to hand over the floor to Paige.
Thank you, Joya. Thank you so much for having us here today. Thanks, guys, for letting us speak to you. This is really exciting. Definitely the first time I've spoken to students since I graduated, which was many moons ago, I feel like. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about JLL. So Jones Lang LaSalle. Has anyone ever seen a sign for JLL? I wish I had our logo. I feel like JLL is one of these companies that you've never heard of, and then once we tell you about it, you'll go like, oh wait, there's their logo, and there it is again, right? So a lot of what you'll see is sometimes commercial office space is available, and be like, call Joe Smith with JLL to rent this space, right? So it's one part of our business. Basically what we do, we're a financial and professional services firm supporting clients across the country and globally. We're in over 80 countries. We have, I think at this point, over 70,000 employees, so we're a very large company. A lot of what we do supports other companies, and we have clients trying to help them with their real estate portfolio, basically providing them business strategy, strategic solutions to their space needs, right? I specifically am on the Capital One account, so my client is Capital One. So I work within their company as a part of them with their employees and associates, whether it's providing them solutions with office space, retail bank branches, that type of thing. And Stan and Jeff do very different work than I do. So we all touch different parts of JLL. One thing I love about JLL, they definitely focus on learning and development. They focus on leadership development and career development. All stuff that is probably keywords to you guys, thinking about your career path outside of college. We're a Fortune 500 company. We are, one of the things that JLL is the most proud of is now, I think it's 10 years running, we are one of the world's most ethical companies. It's very important to us, definitely part of our values as a company and employees of that company. Also, I think collegegrad.com, one of the top entry-level employers is JLL. So hopefully we can give you some sort of keys to success today as you begin looking to enter the workforce. So looking forward to talking to you about that. We work, we do a number of different things from project management, so managing anything like a construction project that you have going on here. We do finance, we have a lot of focus on energy and sustainability, investment management, engineering. So we have so many different facets of our company that, to be honest, when I was in college, I hadn't even known a company like ours existed. So definitely a lot of versatility. And one of the reasons that I'm here today, this was organized by another Hofstra alumni who I worked with, and he and I are part of a diversity and inclusion committee on our account. So it's something that's very important to me and that I'm very passionate about. We have a lot of resources for our employees, a lot of different resource groups. We have a women's business network. We have an African American business network. We have a veterans network. One that we started just recently that I'm really passionate about and a member of is called Possibility. So it supports employees with disabilities or employees with family members with disabilities. So again, just stuff that's really important to JLL. So I won't bore you anymore with JLL. I will say our slogan sort of in the past year has been achieving ambitions. And so I know we sort of tied that in with the title for this event. And I think that ties probably a lot into what my career and career path has been like. And I'm going to steal something one of my colleagues said recently. So my career ladder has not been like a career ladder. It's been more like a jungle gym. Okay, so I can't remember if Joya mentioned this, but it would sort of have to be for me to start as a women's studies major out of college and end up a data center account lead with JLL. You won't probably find another one. Definitely within JLL. So and not to date myself, right? I'm a data center account lead now. When I was in college, I didn't even have a cell phone, right? I mean, I had my first desktop computer when I went to college. So the idea and concept of a data center and I mean the cloud and all this stuff, that's all foreign to me and all stuff I've learned throughout my entire career path and where it's brought me today. So don't think for a second that you've got the path figured out because you'll figure it out as you go and that's okay. Right now as the data center account lead, specifically on the Capital One account, right? So manage the Capital One data centers. They have 5 data centers across the country. I've got a team of roughly 80 people under me, so a big part of my job is people management, which I love and I love doing. I've got finance members, I've got safety, people that are responsible for the health and safety of our employees. I've got engineers, I've got people that do contracts, lease administration, as well as facility management, which is one of the core businesses of JLL. So recently we've added some new service lines as well. So we manage, when it comes to data centers, the server inventory, so all the servers that are coming in and out of those data centers, as well as we have some employees that actually are on the floor plugging in the servers, essentially, and powering them up. And one of the reasons that our business is so important, especially the Capital One, so right, what's Capital One's tagline? Jackson, what's in your wallet, right? So if our data center goes down and people can't use a Capital One credit card, they're losing a lot of money. So it's very important, and our job is to make sure those data centers stay up and running for our client. Client service is our absolute #1 priority. And, you know, as I mentioned before, my career path has been all over the place, but I think that in general, I got where I am today because I just simply proved myself capable of the task at hand, right? So whatever the challenge was placed in front of me, I've always been eager to learn a new skill, learn a new line of business, take initiative, not be afraid to raise my hand and ask the question and just volunteer for things. It's been a fun path. JLL has been a great company to work for, but my background certainly, I started in event management. I was a meeting planner, so again, there's no telling where the future is going to take you. So, Stan?
Thank you. I want to second that emotion in regards to career path. If that's a concern of yours as far as making sure you have a very concrete career path, I would say please do not worry about that. I'll tell you a little bit about my career path and I'll get into my specific role at JLL. So when I grew up since the age of 12 around the real estate business. My family, we own a commercial real estate small company and we manage properties. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't see a career in real estate only in the mid-90s. So, but another interest I had I was very intrigued with government. I knew I wanted to either work in the government sector or I wanted to become an attorney. I interned somewhere right down the street here at a law firm. And I realized quickly that, you know, being an attorney, it's not like when you see on TV, like LA Law is nice and fancy. There's a bunch of binders, sloppy binders all over the place, and it didn't look as cool and flashy. So I pursued a degree in at Hofstra. I graduated in '95 with a degree in political science, and then to pursue my interest in the government sector, I moved down to Northern Virginia, and I found a company that it's a computer-aided design company. So computer-aided design is a software, AutoCAD. I'm sure a lot of you might have heard of it. I'm sure it's involved in the business building that's being built right across the parking lot here. Buildings that they have built with computer-aided design software. So it allowed me to be still in the real estate sector and focus with government accounts. So I was a technology solutions account manager back then, working with government accounts, and still staying in the facilities management realm, which was up my alley because that's how I grew up. So, fast forward today, my title is I'm the Northeast Technology Account Manager for JLL. So basically what I do is I oversee about 50 accounts in the Northeast in regards to the technology that we offer our accounts to measure their day-to-day business. So what Paige was mentioned before, so a lot of the work we do is facilities management. A lot of what we do is analytics, measuring how efficiently you're utilizing your space, and managing the people in the space as well. So there's a lot of intelligence software behind that, and this is a very interesting time in the real estate sector. Some of the buzzwords that you may or may not heard before is things such as smart buildings. Anybody know what IoT stands for?
Internet of Things.
You got it. Internet of Things, and also the future of work. So it's an interesting time because JLL is a large organization that not only sees itself as an investment, real estate investment, facilities management company, but we're also trying to pivot to an IT company, which is, you think about brick and mortar companies that manage buildings to trying to become more IT centric. And the things that are pushing the envelope, what we call the disruptors, are the Internet of Things. And let me explain to you a little bit more. And I want to talk about it because it actually it's a unique part of JLL where we're about 40,000 employees now worldwide, something like that. 76,000. I was way off. So 76,000. So you're talking about a 76,000 person employee company that's almost starting to think more of like a startup. We actually have a program, which actually I'm going to be in the meeting later on this afternoon, is called the DaVinci Awards, where we actually ask all our employees to come up with an idea. And if you win, not only do you get to run it, but you'll get a reward for coming up with something that benefits our accounts. So you see, that's. And then I just learned earlier today about the incubator program. That's why I'm really interested to know a little bit more about that, because we're pivoting to almost like a startup. JLL just acquired a company called JLL Spark, where we actually inherited two of the top venture capitalists in the West Coast and we brought them into JLL, and we just told them, your job is just to create. Didn't even give them a format. Just like, here's your incubator. You go out and figure out what clients want and make it. And if it sells, we'll push it out. So the real estate sector in general, not only JLL, but even our competitors, it's becoming more digital. It's becoming more sensors. And you're seeing it every day with I'm sure many of you have Amazon Echoes at home, or you'll see. What I mean by Internet of Things and smart buildings is where we're moving as a company is, okay, if you had a conference call, I work in our Manhattan office on the 20th floor, and the conference ends at 12:15, smart buildings know to bring a bank of elevators up to that floor at 12:15 because they're going to have an influx of people that need those elevators, and you want to get them out of the building and on their way. And at the same time, now you've got a ton of lights on. So again, energy efficiency, smart buildings. You want to make sure those lights go off at 12, maybe 12:20, because you know that at that time, and you also want to make sure everybody knows that now that room is available. So this, that room, that space is now available. Some other things that Internet of Things does is it does sensor. So we know that with the sensor, we know there's a large congregation of people right now in this room, and if the data shows every month or so, or every day, there's always a large congregation of people. So maybe it kind of factors in how you design a building or where you put people in. So just to wrap up, so I'm able to have a front row seat of this type of transition to a digital company because of my role. I get to see the tools and the toys that we're actually trying to push out in the market and have a say as far as how we pitch that to our accounts. And again, if your career path with JLL, and I would say with all companies, I'll leave it at this, is it's not really about your career path, it's how open you are to learn new things. That's what's key. JLL encourages movement. There's certain companies that maybe, if you raise your hand to your boss or one of my direct reports companies, I'm interested in something else. Some companies might try to find that. We encourage movement. It's lateral movement, up and down movement. So that's one thing. If you come in with eyes wide open, opportunities for advancement and as interest builds, we are very apt to encourage that movement. So that's a little bit about JLL and about me.
So I'm glad we all have a common theme, that our career path has been a jungle gym. That's completely the truth. I actually enrolled to Hofstra in a sports medicine program. I knew nothing about business. I grew up in the real estate industry. My family also, like Stan, has a small real estate company. We do construction, so I did go around with my dad and grandfather collecting rents, not with the baseball bat, but I never really was interested in continuing that. I wanted to create my own path, but things work really in strange ways, and you sort of find yourself back into it. One of the things about the real estate industry and about JLL, it's a people industry. It's all about relationships. It's touching and feeling those relationships. I manage the Deutsche Bank account regionally. We're a global account. We touch 3 or 4 X's, which means we do transaction management, lease administration, project management, portfolio strategy. We don't do their FM business, but that's another service that we provide. But at the end of the day, we're working with our clients who rely on us as the subject matter expert in the industry. And the cool thing about that is that what Stan's doing and what Paige brings is we all do different things, and we're all learning every day to master a different subject. And again, if I'm not interested in doing transaction management today, but I have an interest in project management, like the project here with the new business school, there's a very easy way for you to transition within the firm. So coming in day one, you're not stuck. Only doing basic entry level work. The second thing, let me just I wanted to take a step back and sort of explain my career path a little bit. So 20 years in the industry, most of my expertise was on the client side. I sat in the seat of real estate managers, decision makers for Fortune 500 companies. I did some development work, but at the end of the day, the core that pulled all that together was my relationship with JLL. They worked on a lot of projects that I worked with, the talent and the people that I met. Again, I said before that the real estate industry is a relationship business. And at the, I'm only with JLL for 3 years, but I think those relationships fostered into an opportunity for me to come join a firm, be more entrepreneurial, and help create solutions for our clients. So just to give you a sense, I think for me the biggest opportunity within JLL is the entrepreneurship, but also it's our core values. I mean, we really are teamwork driven for ourselves and our clients. We're ethical, like Paige said, we're #1 ethics rated over the last 15 or 20 years, and our excellence, how we're driving excellence to our business and our clients. And being part of that is an unbelievable feeling. Even though we're a 76,000 employee business, it is a small sense, and there's a lot of collaboration amongst the team globally.
Thank you. I must say that JLL sounds like an awesome company to work for. Before we begin our questions, I just wanted to reiterate some of the very important concepts our panelists sort of repeated over and over again. The first is the importance of corporate social responsibility. More and more you find, and you probably can comment on this yourselves, that young people are looking for opportunities, successful opportunities, but they're also looking for these opportunities in companies that they be proud to work for, the companies that are ethical, that do the right thing, not only for the bottom line, but also for their employees, their community, and environment. So that's very important. I'm glad all of you mentioned that. The other concept, and I know I love that jungle gym analogy, because my career had twists and turns in it, and one thing that young people should think about is not to be myopic about your career. There's not one straight path, and you have to be open to new challenges and to develop skills, as all of you talked about. And finally, and I'm sure the dean would agree with this, the focus on entrepreneurship. Beginning next year, the fall of 2018, all first-year students at the Zard School of Business will be taking the Introduction to Global Entrepreneurship course. And it's not that we think that every one of our students is going to start their own business, but in talking with recruiters and with our alumni, they're stressing that even working at a large company like JLL, that company is looking for people with that entrepreneurial mindset, that are ability to think creatively, to think outside the box, the ability to take risks. So we love that focus on entrepreneurship. Okay, so first question, and why don't we begin with Jeff. What do employers look for a candidate when interviewing for an entry-level position at JLL?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a very, very good question. And I'm going to talk about some real-life recent, hiring on the entry-level slots. I had two recent hirings. But essentially what I look for the firm is personality, the fit factor. I mean, for me, because of our core values, it's imperative that the person we hire fits within the culture, the team, our client's team, because that's one of the biggest challenges we have is making sure that the engine keeps running. There's no hiccups sort of on the team. The second thing is how you present yourself in the interview. I want to see how you're answering or reacting to the tough questions, the easy questions, the simple stuff, just the how you carry yourself, how you shaking hands, looking into the interviewer's eyes when you're speaking. So it's just the basics, what I call. And the last thing for me is just hearing about your expectations. I mean, for me, it's very important to understand that you're coming in. We know everybody's very talented and has a lot to offer, but I want to understand that you're going to master the basics. That's very important for me because a lot of these entry-level jobs are very basic, and if you can master those basic tasks, you can master or start getting to learn the more complicated tasks. And again, my team is 14 people, and we rely on each other to deliver a service to our client. Everybody has a role on the team, and one of the things we foster is innovation, and everybody has a voice in the room, no matter if you're an entry-level person or a senior-level executive on the team. So those are really the core components of what we look for.
Yeah, it's great points. I want to second that is, your humility, your personality, your openness to be a part of a team is extremely important. And in my position, it's even more extreme, and I'll explain a little bit why. That's what we're looking for with folks. I remember when I was interviewing at JLL, and I never knew. I believe I spoke to 50 people before I got yes, 50. And then I was in a meeting in our Chicago office, which was our headquarters, and our global CIO was in the room, and it was everybody that just got hired. And he was like, "Do you know that if one of those 16 people even had an inkling that you might not be the right fit, you wouldn't be in this room today in your orientation. So that goes back to, I mean, obviously, yes, you have to have those, you have to be able to understand those core basics, but JLO, you know, the resumes that I get, I can already tell these individuals have those core foundational traits down. I want to hear what helps your resume jump off the page, and that really has to do with exactly how you shake my hand, how do you interact with me, how do you answer tough questions. I want to hear humility. I want to hear empathy. I want to hear understanding. I want to hear that you're actually open to working with others. And you know what? It's an interesting trait in this new world of less social interaction. What's interesting about working for a company like JLL, the human interaction part is not going to be taken over from robots or whatever, you know, as far as intelligence, AI, artificial intelligence later on, because in our sector, there's still going to be a lot of human interaction. I mean, there's going to be individuals going into buildings, unless, you know, you can't assume everybody's going to be working from home. So we are a very interactive company. We are client-facing. In my role, what we're looking for is an individual that almost like that could fit into multiple environments. I have over 50 accounts. Jeff's account is my account. You have to be able to speak to individuals from in different parts of the world. I deal with the Deutsche Bank account mainly in EMEA, so I'm always on the phone with the individuals in EMEA. So understanding the way they look at business might not be exactly the same how we do business in North America. So you have to be able to be flexible, understanding with deadlines. Cultures do play a role in the job, so you have to be open and flexible. So it's not really your credentials, it's your personality, your willingness to open up and absorb different things. And again, I guess entrepreneurship is very big. You definitely will feel like you actually that you're not really being micromanaged too much. We trust that you went through the interview process and you got into JLL. So we don't really need to micromanage you, or else you wouldn't be. We understand that if we left you, you're going to be able to do the job that that we asked you to do. So if you're looking for someone that's not going to be over your shoulder too much, I guess in the early stages, you probably want a little bit more guidance. But as your career goes on, most people kind of like that entrepreneurship. They don't want to be micromanaged much. They want that freedom to experience and excel. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, so I think what I'll add to that is be authentic, right? Be who you are and be your true self. Don't try to be the person that you think the interviewer wants you to be, okay? Not everyone is a leader. Not everyone's going to be a CEO. Some people are really great at getting tasks done. Focus on what you're really good at and make sure the interviewer knows that. I say that because, you know, on my team, I've got, when I have leadership positions open, I know the people that have shown those skills and are good in those areas, and there's some people that just aren't interested, and that's fine. But they're the people that are my boots on the ground that get stuff done. And I will tell you, it's really important to highlight those types of things if you feel like you are that doer, and certainly in a lot of our entry-level positions, that's what we're relying on, right? So show me examples of, this is something that I was asked to do or I volunteered to do, and this is how I got it done. And maybe this is how I got it done more efficiently than the last person that did it. This is how I improved the process. Focus on real examples of things that you've done, things that you've been a part of, that really highlight your skill set, highlight what you're good at, highlight what you want to focus on. And again, I feel like authentic is just such a great word when it comes to that, because you're just like what we were talking about with corporate responsibility and things like that. You want to make sure that you're aligned with the company and who they are. And if you're your true self and they see, yes, that person's a fit for us, then you've got a great match. Flexibility is probably another one. So I think, what's the term I want to use? I would say like don't let your ego get in the way. I don't know that there's been too many times in my career where I felt like, ugh, I can't do that, because it just happens to be my personality where I go like, yes, I'll figure out a way to get it done. But I also When you interview someone, you say, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And they say like, oh, I'll have your job. It's like, okay, just breaks a little bit. So it's, you guys all made great points about a lot of the things that JLL looks for. And I just think in general, be your true self. And I think that will serve you the best.
Wonderful. Some great takeaways. Humility, I think, is very important, and that being authentic. I think those are things that you really should focus on. Alrighty, our next question, we'll start with Stan. Tell us about your greatest success and greatest failure in your career.
Sure. I think my greatest success would probably be just pretty much being able to understand my team. In order to get into a leadership role, I mean, as Paige made an interesting point, the folks that are in your leadership roles are not the folks that are going to say, I want your job, or really, by any means necessary folks, just kind of clear the path, here I come. It's individuals who are very caring, the individuals that actually understand their team and are down to earth and actually care for each other, because you're not going to be a leader of a team that for individuals that don't care about their leader and want them to succeed as well. And how you're able to get to that point is you have to show respect to the individuals that are working for your team. So I think for me, my greatest success is really making a focus of learning about the individuals on my team on a personal level. I want to know their husbands or wives or girlfriends or boyfriends' names, and I want to know, what did you do this with, what are their hobbies. So when I have my one-on-ones with my team on a bi-weekly or weekly basis, I always try to start out with something personal. I don't want to get right to it. So I think that's being able to understand individuals. It's very important in regards to. It's one of my greatest successes. I would say one of my greatest failures, it probably has to do with, again, the jungle gym as far as professionally is concerned. I would say I probably should have. I was very ambitious in my mid-career years, where I would try to advance as soon as possible by going from one company to the next. So I would say one of my greatest failures is really probably not sticking through with certain companies. Sticking through a little bit, being a little bit more too ambitious, like the grass is greener on the side. So I think that's very important for you guys, especially as when we look at resumes, the 6 months, 1 year skip, 1 year the job hopping, it's sometimes a positive, but sometimes it could very well be negative, because we're trying to understand, why are you leaving a company? So I used to get those questions sometimes as well. So I would say my biggest failure was probably not seeing the process through with a company and jumping for an increased salary, or try to hop a position so I could kind of get my way up the ladder a little bit more. So as I got a little bit older, I understood that, I kind of read the tea leaves, and I saw the people that were like that had the most advancement. They kind of stuck around at an account or a client a little bit more. And you'll notice that when you come into a new company, you're like, oh, this person graduated college 10 years younger than me, but they're 2 levels above me. Why? Then you look at their career path. They actually stuck around a little bit more. So I would say that's if I had to take it all back, I would have stayed the course a little bit more, instead of doing a little bit of job hunting, to almost be like a frog and try to lead the other person. But at some points, it's not really the case.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, Stan, because I think what I'm going to say piggybacks on that a little bit, right? I have been in the job market for 18 years, and I have had 8 different jobs. So you can do the math. You don't need to finance to do that, right? So I did jump around quite a bit in my career. I will say that my greatest failure and my greatest success sort of go back to back. I went from being in the event planning, conference management industry, fell backwards into doing project management. So I was doing construction project management, and I loved it. And I learned it from the ground up with another facility management company, oddly enough, a competitor of JLL. And I always wanted to get into data centers. I wasn't an engineer. I didn't have an engineering background. I had never worked for a general contractor. So really had a lot of closed doors in terms of opportunities where I was. And so I decided the grass is greener. And I found an opportunity with another company, and I actually took a step back in my career and went from being a project manager to an assistant project manager so that I could get my foot in the door doing data center work. And I think what happened when I was glad that I did that in my career, because that's what opened the door for me to be involved in data centers where I am still today. I think what happened, I was talking about being your true self. I really sort of put myself in the lens that I felt like that company wanted me to fit into. I wasn't able to really show my strengths. I just they put me in a box and I stayed there. Instead of really reaching out, branching out, showing what I was good at. I never was able to figure that out, and I really was afraid that I had made kind of my biggest career mistake by doing this. And ultimately, what ended up serving me well was I did work with project managers as an assistant project manager, and worked with a number of very talented individuals who were able to see my skill set. And ultimately, one of those project managers came to JLL, and he is who then called me and said, hey, I've got an open position as at the time, data center facility manager. I want you to come and work for me, right? So I think that which has ended up being probably my greatest career success, right? That ability to just show people, make sure they know what your talents are, know what your work ethic is, know what you're good at. That networking piece is so important. I had been connected with a number of mentors through my career and didn't take advantage of it. Finally got to a place where I did, and it's hard work actually to have a mentor relationship that's successful. And that's really what's been able to leverage me through my network to be successful within JLL. So to Stan's point again, I mean, now I've been with JLL actually only 3 years, but as my career timeline has shown, that is quite a long time. And I am very happy with JLL and hope to be with them for quite a long time. So again, I think that don't be afraid to take risks. I've gotten a place where I took one. I was really afraid it was kind of an epic fail, and actually ended up working out great for me in the long run because of the connections I made and the people that I knew. Thank you.
Yeah, I think mine is a little different, just because the transaction management space is a little bit more tangible and we're measured differently. So when I think about my successes, when I was at BNY Mellon, my biggest career success, which opened doors for me actually to JLL, is executing a sale of One Wall Street and a kind of building down in the financial district for BNY Mellon. It was their corporate headquarters. For 100 years, and then basically transitioning that business into a new headquarters deal downtown, which enabled the bank to actually reduce their portfolio by 700,000 square feet and save about 25 million in run rate savings. So for me, that's really the linchpad to the next steps of my career and continue with the relationships I built from there. The great part of that project is also, I think the bank, when I worked there, was under a lot of cost pressure. So they were very open to just new ways of working. And the project, sort of enabled us to also implement alternative workplace, mobility programs. We measured utilization, and it was a great project to work on. And I would say, from my career, that's probably the biggest success I've had to date. The second, failures, and this is all about risk taking for me. So just before the 2008 market crash, I worked for a development company. It was small, hot shot. I'm in the business for about 10 years. I'm like, I could do this myself. So I essentially left that company, which went on to do really good things. I wasn't patient about it. I went to the market, partnered with two other gentlemen. We actually did an initial raise on the Israeli bond market, which is a very common, equity source in today's market. A lot of developers are going there raising money at 3-4% and investing that as equity. But at the end of the day, it was probably the biggest failure mistake. I underestimated not only the red tape that went with raising public funding and investing it here in Class A, suburban office markets, but also, it was just a bad timing decision. I should have been more patient, gotten more experience with what I was doing, and I would probably been better off, after the market crashed and starting with sort of an investment opportunity like that.
Alrighty. I think all the panelists emphasize the importance of soft skills. Not only do you have to have the knowledge that you're acquiring in business school, but the soft skills are very important as well. The ability to communicate effectively with your coworkers, with your people working for you and the people working above you. I also liked, that's really interesting about the Israeli bond market. It reminded me that again, the Zarb School is focusing more and more on entrepreneurship, and actually we're offering a course in the spring, global entrepreneurship consulting in Israel. How many of you know about the course? Have you heard about the course? The dean knows about the course. Yeah, and there'll also be an entrepreneurship course in Silicon Valley where the students during spring break will travel to Israel and travel to Silicon Valley to meet the entrepreneurs that they're working on projects with. So thank you for that lead in to that. Alrighty, next question, and we'll begin with Paige. How do you foresee your industry changing in the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you think that'll affect employment prospects?
Yeah, Stan talked a lot about this to start, and so we may have a lot of the same sort of sentiments echoing across the panel. JLL certainly recently has, well, previously certainly a real estate company, they want to morph it into a technology company that focuses on corporate real estate. So, I think it's just the way things are going. I work for a client that is very forward-thinking in terms of specifically their office space and the importance in creating a work environment and a company culture that recruits top employees, right? So they're competing against the Googles and the Facebooks and all that kind of stuff. So they want to create an environment that students want to come to, that the best people in their field want to come and work there. So some of the office spaces that we have built for our client, I mean, went to one in Chicago, and there was like hidden rooms, like the door, you didn't even know it was there. You sort of like swiped your badge and a spot on the wall. You had to know it was there, and this door opened up, and the floor was like individually laid pennies. I mean, just really cool stuff that doesn't maybe mean a lot, but makes you feel like, ooh, I want to come to work here, right? So I think recruiting top talent is huge. Definitely that technology piece, and certainly the focus on mobility, right? The ability to, whether I come and I work before I speak here at this panel, whether I'm working on the airplane, working in an office in Chicago, or trying to work from home while my 2 and 3-year-olds scream in the background. So that's definitely where we see our industry going, is supporting our clients in terms of getting them to those places and giving them innovative solutions to get there. So yeah, I mean, I know Stan threw out the term future of work, but certainly with our focus being real estate, I am in the client, we serve specific clients. So really solving for their real estate needs, how can we get their footprint smaller, increase their employee mobility and their employee satisfaction so they can retain top talent. So it's one of the areas I see the industry going.
Great. Stan?
Sure. So yes, as I discussed earlier, and what Paige mentioned as well, is the industry as a whole is definitely going to more IT centric. Being that, we've had brick and mortar buildings for ages, but over the years, buildings have become more digital. Like you probably heard in listening to the news, if you haven't seen it already, you will be seeing soon. You're going to be going into stores, and they're going to know who you are. And all of a sudden, the signs are going to change, or because they know that you like a certain type of outfit, right? So they're going to say, okay, 2 for $5, $2 for $5. These slots are on sale. We're doing that. We're trying to do that within the real estate sector as well. They want to know the person is coming through the door. I worked on a project, I'm not going to name it, but I worked on a badge swipe project with a client of mine where you swipe your badge and we kind of know who you are. As soon as you swipe your badge, you get into the office. So we know what you like. We kind of know, and we're measuring you. That's nothing. Measurement is it. When you do a digital, a lot of it is measurement. We're measuring what you like when you go into a store. So we measure you. You just swipe your badge. So let's see what you do next. Are you going to go to that vending machine? We got you again because you're going to swipe your badge to get your food, so we know what you like to eat. We know where you go in the morning, what kind of coffee you like, because it's all going to be measured. So who wants, just think about it. Now that I have this information, who would want that? WB, the individuals that come to do the coffee. Pepsi, Cola, they want to know, okay, this individual is between 20 and 35. They like this type of coffee. All that data equals money. So the industry is changing to be more IT. So what does that mean for you? The hot jobs, not only at JLL, but across the board, are business intelligence jobs. Mm-hmm. So individuals what does that mean? So individuals that could analyze the situation, but the key here is being able to analyze it, but actually being able to quickly translate that to something that somebody could measure. So let me give you an example. Now, in the IT sector, why my job is unique. A coder couldn't do my job unless you have those. If you're a coder and you're not really personal skills, but you're awesome at coding, you're not going to be able to really relate to the business lead or business lead. So because you have to be in a role these days in IT, and how it's going is you have to be able to have IT speak and also be able to translate that to what does that mean to your specific client. So business intelligence is extremely important, and as we know, we hear about it all the time, any type of security specialty that anybody has, your people are going to run to you, beg you to come work for them. So security and business intelligence are two big things, because when you're dealing with becoming an IT company, you're opening yourself up to the market, to thousands of people seeing you, and we're on a video now. So when you open yourself up to the market, security plays a big role. So business intelligence and security are the wave. Those are hot words that we look for when we look at resumes. Who has business intelligence specialties? Who's been using business intelligence software? Who has that analytic background in different sectors? Finance or facility, banking, finance or beverage alcohol, which I'm in as well at JLL. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Thanks for introducing business intelligence. Yes. I think, in the transaction management space, that is the number one thing that our clients are looking for. How are we using data? How are we slicing data? How are we using data to make decisions? So when I started off in the industry, we were managing portfolios with an Excel spreadsheet, and we were just touching, leases or deals as they expired within a 12-month or 18-month period. Today, it's a completely different animal. I mean, I hired a person just on our account just to specifically do BI and data analytics. And what we're doing is we're cutting the data in many different ways. And so for example, we know when leases are expiring within the next 3 years, right? Then we could layer in utilization rates. Okay, we have an office in LA. The lease is coming up. It's a landlord-friendly or tenant, let's call it a tenant-friendly market. So we're in a leverage position, but the office only has 50% utilization based on the badge flight data. That's a deal we can work on today and reduce the size of that office for our client. And the opportunities are endless. We are mapping up mark-to-market on a daily basis through data intelligence. We're getting utilization through the badge swipe or the sensor data. I mean, so it's a very different way on how we're sort of supporting transaction management. So that's the first thing. But going into how this industry is changing, I mean, there's no doubt we're in a talent war today. And that's thanks to Amazon, the Googles, the Facebooks. And so I specialize in financial service clients, and they realize this. Their property today, they realize that property today, their headquarters or their office, is a way that they can attract talent. It's a way that they could win business. It's not just a bricks and mortar business anymore. It's a way for them to achieve their ambitions. And at JLL, I don't know if you guys heard this before, but we have a 330-300 principle, which essentially, for $3 of cost of utilities, $30 is attributed to rent, and 300 is the human, people. And investing or saving 10% and focusing on the 300 is a much greater savings than focusing on the rent. So I think just the way that operating environments within companies are really changing, and they're focusing on that talent, retaining talent. They're measuring their attrition rates and focusing that investment in the people space and delivering the best in class space as possible. And then finally, I think also just want to touch on we do a lot of health and safety at JLL, but I think there's a big change in also well-being and health within firms. Years ago, the corporate real estate departments used to report into either the CFO or sometimes IT. Now we're seeing sort of these departments are reporting directly into the C-suite, the CEO, a board member, and recently HR, which is again going back to the talent. Everybody's fighting for the same talent, and I think that's a big change that's sort of coming. There's a statistic that I heard that recently that 75% of the population are going to be, the workforce populations are going to be millennials by 2025, and I think companies are realizing that now and adjusting how they're operating. So that's the way I see sort of the industry going.
Thank you. Big data fascinates me, but scares me. It's interesting that you focused on that because I think the students know that we have our newest major at the Zarg School is in business analytics, and many students are pursuing that major, and many students are thinking about it as a minor. It's a minor that works with any major, finance, marketing, accounting. There's big data and business analytics everywhere, and I think the panelists emphasize that. Finally, our last question. What advice do you have for students as they complete their education and enter into their professional careers? What skills, we have some of our students are first years, second years here, what skills should they be developing while they're still students that would help them in their careers? I'll start with Jeff.
So the first thing I would say is focus on the soft skills. Don't be afraid to learn new technologies, new programs. I mean, back when I started, it was Excel, all that stuff. But there's a lot of those intangibles that you can bring to the table. The second is network. That's a huge. I think a lot of people, students, underestimate the power of networking. Don't be afraid to approach people, ask what they do, whether they're entry level or senior level. You'll be surprised today how the C-suite is open to meeting people, understanding what you're doing, and hearing about yourself. And then just keep learning. I mean, even at JLL, I'm going to college right now at JLL, really defining how the future of what we call PAT, which is our portfolio analytics tool, talking about big data before, how we're going to bring that into the future. So I would recommend, don't be afraid to continue learning. There's a lot of things change, on a daily basis, and mastering, like I said before, the basics, I think is very important.
Very good points. I was going to say almost the same thing. I would say first thing is, going back to what Jeff said, when you leave campus, networking is extremely important because it's kind of funny. Some things just don't change in regards to, as technology progresses, the human experience, the fact that, one of the most important things is getting ahead. A lot of people that got their job because they knew somebody or somebody recommended them. Since I graduated, I was the president of I went to grad school, George Mason. I was president of the School of Management Alumni Association for the New York area. So I oversaw all alumni activities, whether it be having activities at a bar or when George Mason came for a basketball game or what have you. I purposely took that position so I could network with others. I was able to meet graduates that graduated 20 years before me that were CIOs and businesses that that I would never have the opportunity to meet that individual if I didn't go out and network. Networking is the easiest thing to do. You guys have a unique advantage that we never, LinkedIn wasn't even a thought when we were at, you guys have it so much easier than we had it. Now you have LinkedIn, you can join groups, but tell you what, these digital groups, they're not gonna really get you that far. You guys still gotta get out there and shake hands. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be if we don't like networking, right? I mean, it's advantage to all of us. And as Jeff mentioned, you got to keep learning. You got to keep learning. A couple of reasons is as everything moves to IT, big data, IoT, business intelligence. These are all technology kind of things. They're all backed by some type of an application, or there's nothing you do these days anymore that's just pencil and paper. Everything is digital, which means things are going to change. There's certifications that would never even existed. Like I never thought I have an ITIL certification now. Information Technology Infrastructure Library. That's a global certification that transcends any industry. So there's so many certifications that you get there. You could get that are not industry specific. They're gonna be in your back pocket that are extremely beneficial to many industries. There's security. Anybody you could go out and get to be honest, you could go out and get a security certification within 6 to 8 months. And literally, you may even increase your salary by 15%. That's how big the demand for security level skill set is now. So keep learning. I can tell you, I just finished an IT leadership course at Columbia University. It's a CIO course. Just finished that 4 months ago. Every year, one of my resolutions is, what else can I learn this year? Especially in my field, you can't stay static in my field. You're just going to get ran over. So networking and keep learning are the two things I would recommend.
Yeah, so I'll try to say the exact same thing, but tell you a little bit about when I was in school. I was on the swim team, right? So a lot of my time was spent very early mornings and very late nights doing that. I was also in a sorority, somehow I found time for school, right? But through those activities, there were opportunities to grow outside of that, outside of just swimming, right? I was what we called a student-athlete mentor, right? I'm really sort of a leader on the team in terms of being a role model for drug and alcohol, not non-use, right? I don't want to say use, but so to educate people against those types of things. Similar positions within my sorority where I was able to sort of be a leader in those groups, whether it was organizing events, organizing charity events, volunteer events. There's opportunities in your day-to-day life here at school that you can put on your resume, talk to people about in an interview that don't have to be a job. I'll also say, obviously, I'm sure you guys have internship programs and things. So when I was in college, I was an intern. I interned at our local NBC affiliate in Charlottesville, Virginia, in the sports department. I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I loved it. I went out and I filmed games, I wrote scripts, and at the end of the day, they said, okay, well, now you get in front of the camera and practice, being a reporter. And I froze right there on the spot. And I said, nope, I don't want to do it. I was afraid to fail. I was afraid that I was going to be terrible at it. And that was the end of that career path. And so don't be afraid to try stuff. This is the time to try it, It's as you get older and have much, much more responsibility, it gets harder to take those really big risks. So do it. Step outside the box now. Anytime you have the opportunity to do it, whether it's helping organize an event like this, people are always looking to help others along, to help them learn, to grow their skill set. You'd be really surprised. I would say don't be afraid to even ask your parents, like, hey, your friend Joe, he's he's in this field and I'm kind of interested. Can I talk to him? I mean, they would love to talk to you. And I think that's what's hard to understand as a student. And looking back, I see the value in that now and being so willing to talk to people. I think like, oh, I wish I had taken folks up on that more. So just don't be afraid to just raise your hand and take opportunity and ask for opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for these very personal and candid remarks. I'm sure our students have benefited greatly. Now we'd like to open it up for questions. I'd ask that when you do ask a question that you identify yourself, say your major and your year in school. So who's going to be the brave first person? Great. All righty. Audrey?
So my name is Audrey Jones. I am an accounting major and a junior here. I wanted to ask all of you to talk about your not specifically, but your career changes and how, when you moved from one point to another in your career path, how did you know that was the right time for you?
I'll go ahead and go first, I guess. So, because I had some pretty major career changes. Start off as an event planner, and got really lucky in the fact that where I was working, they were looking for a project manager, and they said, well, hey, Paige, she plans events and meetings, so she can plan a project. It's just sort of different at the end. And I did not know that it was the right move for me, to be quite honest. I really enjoyed meeting and event planning, and I will say at that time and at that age, it was probably more of a salary-driven decision. I really can't make a whole lot of money being a meeting and event planner, as much as I love it. I love meeting people, and so made that change. And I think eventually my next so I got into project management, which was really fun. I mean, doing construction projects and just being boots on the ground, doing those types of things. Got really lucky that I found myself in a good position. I think my more recent career change into facility management was a little bit hesitant about, because the great thing about projects is there's a beginning and an end. And you, at the end, you go like, I did great. I finished on time and under budget. Or you kind of go like, oh my God, that was terrible. What can I learn from that? I was so late, and the client wasn't happy. And now in facility management, it's just a constant churn. There is no beginning and there is no end in sight. So just continue to challenge myself. And I think for me, at that point, it was a growth opportunity, and I felt like I had sort of I'll use mastered in quotes, because I don't think you can ever master a skill, but mastered where I was. I felt like I needed a new challenge. And so that's kind of my major pivots in my career, and where I was in my doing.
Sure, I can chime in. As I mentioned a little while back, it was kind of like a blessing and a curse as far as what I knew, because sometimes I probably didn't make the right move. I mentioned the leapfrogging of what I thought was a strategic move at the time, but I think a lot of us, when we're young, we fall into that. I've got my degree, I'm going to go conquer the world, and I'm going to get there faster than you are. And you kind of live and you learn. So for me, it was I noticed that certain companies that I had worked for were very lateral, meaning that I knew that, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I was always getting certificates. So when I had a job in Virginia working in the government, I was actually getting my master's. So when I got my degree, I automatically thought I was too good for I had to go. I mean, you can't hold me anymore. I got this degree. I gotta go get something. It's that kind of like a little cocky, little confidence, and it comes when you're young. So I knew when it was a good time, when I thought that the company was a little bit lateral, and most of the time, I was kind of right, because I would still look at that company like, okay, those individuals have been there for 10, 12 years, and they've kind of got that same title. So, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, why JLL is kind of unique. I think the key to capturing millennials' attention is really that entrepreneurship, the fact that the world is your oasis in this company. You could go so many different directions. Hey, we're encouraging, we're actually tapping you on the back, saying, go check that out, work on this project. So I knew it was the time when I made the right moves. It was really because the company I thought was lateral. There really wasn't any more advancement. But as I get older, and it's something for you guys to look out for, I knew it was the companies these days which attract and attain are the companies where there's opportunities within and encouraging. And it's a culture of encouragement. And so hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same thing. I think for me personally, a lot of the jumping around that I've done at your level now, I changed my majors a couple of times before I felt like that was the right fit for me. The minute I graduated college, I went into the real estate industry. The thing I liked about it was that there's so many different broad areas of expertise that you can build upon. And I think Stan has hit it right on the head. you'll get to know once you're in a job whether there's growth or lateral. You're at that lateral stage. You'll know it. You'll feel it. You'll get a sense, and that just comes with, I think, experience in the market.
Thank you. Next question. Yeah.
Hi, Thomas Recruiter. I'm a management major. I had a question with regards to real estate, retail real estate in specific. Over the last few years, we've seen the cannibalization from Amazon of in-store customers per se. Firstly, where do you guys see the future of retail in that respect? And second of all, where do you see the retailers turn the tide against Amazon?
It's a great question. I think the future of retail is Amazon and Whole Foods. That experience. It's a much different experience. I mean, bricks and mortar space is expensive, right? I mean, it's probably this. Besides people, real estate is the second highest cost on your P&L. So I think companies like Amazon are just shaking up the whole market, and you're going to see a lot of movement to counter that. I see it in the real estate industry with like a WeWork or a Regis changing their business model. It's just too expensive to operate. I mean, when you walk in Manhattan, you see every corner has a bank, right? And I think right now that whole model is probably dated, and a lot of the retail banking branch, which I don't really have experience in that side of the business, but I think there's a lot of push from what I'm hearing is just to change that model, change that experience, and I think that's going to be really driven by the smart building, the IT, and all that stuff. But I think that's a great question, and I think there's a lot more to come. And just the Whole Foods and Amazon type of thing is just the start of it.
Yeah, it's a great point, and and I'm going to flip that as far as what does it mean to us, because you can see that like we're a brick and mortar company, so that's almost like a threat, right? You think about it, like you've got spaces which are shrinking. Macy's, how many times you see them using? They're closing 30 stores or what have you. So what does that mean for a company that, like a company that's originated as a facilities management company? Well, right, that's where business intelligence, smart buildings, measurement. I'm not going to name names, but we actually are. A lot of these clients are ours now. So we're actually in the warehouses. We're actually doing that. You'll be surprised how much robotics goes on in some of these major factories. We're playing a part in that. There's not that many people moving boxes anymore. A lot of it is very digital. There's robots moving around taking boxes. And so we're having to pivot. It's either that's why we become an IT company, or we get lost, because when the brick and mortar goes away, like you're mentioning, it's going away. I don't see anything, to be honest with you, personally. I'm not an expert in retail, but I have friends that work as far as designers, or they work for different companies. I don't see that really coming back. I don't really see a scenario where there's going to be more brick and mortar. Think about it from a cost perspective. Look how much, one of the reasons why Amazon is so profitable is because they can eliminate a lot of these brick and mortar stores, so that, the cost is much less, right? So the future from a retail perspective, as far as big box, I don't personally, I don't see a growth in there. I see more of, from a JLL perspective, as far as our job is to bring the intelligence, the analytics, the efficiencies, cost saves. Cost saves is so big in this in our industry. Our clients want to know, how could you save 10%, 5% year over year? So how you do that is through measuring the market and figuring out where those buckets of opportunities to save are. So.
Yeah, I think sort of along the same lines. As I mentioned, I'm on the Capital One account, and while I'm not involved in their retail bank branch side of the business, one of the things they have done is they've rolled out what they call the Capital One cafes, and so trying to find a new way. This is what Jeff was talking about, to bring customers in and change that banking experience, because the standard, the old-fashioned way just wasn't working anymore. So where do people want to be, right? Where do they want to hang out? Where do they want to work? Where would they be more comfortable doing business and speaking to people and trying to change that? I can't speak to really the success of that because I'm just not familiar with it. But I think that that's it. Part of what JLL is trying to do is try to help these companies innovate, figure out how they can get their customers still coming in, how can we create efficiencies for them, and that type of thing. But yeah, certainly, and even in the data center business, right, the cloud is out there. So the cloud is somewhere, so it's somewhere. So yeah, it's definitely something that continues to impact the data center industry in addition to just technology advances there, right? I mean, 5 years ago, the size of a server that you need to hold data, I mean, now you just see so much less and less space, but there's more and more data. So it's just going to be constantly evolving as we move forward.
Let me just add something to that. Actually, what Paige just said is really important, because even for companies that need to make long-term strategic decisions, they don't even know where IT is going. It's very hard to make commitments, signing 20-year leases without knowing where your technology is going to be in 5 years. So we've run into a lot of strategic thinking around that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and student raised his hand.
My name is Wayne Tzedek. I'm a second-year accounting major. I want to know, you all spoke about practice with like your skills and making sure that you develop things before you get to the jobs. Is there any way to get hands-on experience with software used in these companies without an internship, or is that something that you really need to like take part with the company to get hands-on experience with?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our products are proprietary, so I think an internship is the easiest way to get in and start playing around and working through that. I think it's difficult. Off-the-shelf stuff, obviously, that's out there. But in terms of like our portfolio analytics at Blackbird, which basically is a 3D site selection process that we could take clients through and see space within a 3D view. I think being within the walls is probably being outside of those walls is probably is challenging.
Right, I agree with that. I think a lot of it is you're not gonna, even if you do find a free software on the internet, it's like what makes that individual attractive is like, tell me how you applied it, right? It's the application, because it's almost like okay, you know how to play the piano, but what kind of music have you played with it is what's more interesting to us, because what intrigues a company is, okay, wow, you actually have you learned this particular application, wow, but you actually did it in the banking sector. I'm looking for somebody in the banking sector. If you used it in, so it's kind of like, where have you applied that before? So that's a great question, and it's a tough skill to get, right? You really do have to be able to apply it somewhere, because it's almost like saying to yourself, okay, I'm an Excel spreadsheet wizard. Okay, so but what kind of analytic work did you do? What kind of measurements did you kind of obtain by utilizing, Excel formulas, right? That's more of a sell.
I think too, just showing the ability to pick up on those different softwares, right? So even if you said, in this class we use this software for this reason or this project, and this one I learned this, and maybe none of those are something that I use on my account with JLL, I'm gonna go like, wow, I mean, this guy can easily pick up these different softwares, right? Because even, right now we're going from using Excel to track sort of our budgeting, right, on a month-to-month basis. What were we forecasted to spend? What did we actually spend? Why were we behind or ahead? And how can we change that forecast? What were our variances? We're moving into a brand new tool for my whole team. So we all have to learn it, right? My finance manager has to learn it. My facility managers have to learn it. I have to learn it. My facility coordinators have to learn it. So it didn't even exist 3 years ago. So just that willingness to learn and the ability to learn is key.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more point. That's extremely important. So in your perspective, if there was an opportunity that in your department there was enough just to play around with a particular software on your own time, and whether you, that's intriguing, because what jumps out to me as far as when I'm looking from an IT perspective, when I'm looking at resumes, is like, at least you're curious to try. Your curiosity is key, because you have to remember, just like with your iPhones or your Samsung devices, there's always a new version coming out, right? So every time there's a new version, you've got to learn it again. So your willingness to learn is almost as important of that skill, because we know that, okay, so you're going to be fine. If we say, hey, go to Chicago for a week and learn this new, you're not going to cross your hand. You're going to be like, oh, cool, a new toy. So the eagerness is almost as important as learning that skill. The fact that you've got a resume of like, oh yeah, I tried this when I was a sophomore or junior. This is cool, I tried this. Maybe it was version 1 and now we're at 8.8, but at least you have the willingness to try. So just experiment. And with those experiments, document.
Alrighty, thank you so much. And let's give a round of applause to I'd like to present you with a small token of our appreciation. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Alrighty, there's plenty of food in the back. I give the panelists who are willing to stay on for a couple more minutes if you want to ask them questions. And thank you all for coming.